in the sport of boxing, male or female, and she's the only champion with more belts than Triple G has up here. So we wanted to make sure that you all get a chance to meet and speak with Cecilia Brancos. Also, Tony Walker's in the back there from HBO. You know, we want to definitely acknowledge. So just so everyone knows, everyone was kind of speculating what's the announcement going to be today. You know, normally we would have a big announcement. Normally we would have a big banner hanging up here announcing a fight. You know, this will be the first media lunch that we have here at the Palm to basically announce that there is no announcement. There's been so much speculation in the press and the media, and you know, one opponent or another opponent or one venue or you know, purses or things of that nature. So you know, I wanted to, because there's so much speculation, everyone's calling me and texting me or calling Abel. You know, Gennady wanted to come down here and sit in front of you and say that he wants to fight May 5. He's made it clear to me. That's my direction. And Abel's training 100%. Gennady's in sparring, and he wants to fight May 5. There's been a lot of challenges between the venues, opponents that we've gone through, sanctioning bodies. You know, I'm in contact with the IBF, the WBC, the WBA, as to sorting out an amicable solution for everyone, while at the same time not denying Triple G the opportunity to fight May 5, as well as his goal of getting Canelo back in the ring potentially in September. Canelo is supposed to have his hearing April 18th in Nevada in the commission. So you know, once the commission rules how long his suspension is, that'll at least sort out the Canelo equation, because that's the biggest fight in boxing. I mean, literally, you know, Triple G is training for the biggest fight in boxing, May 5, and all of a sudden everyone on our side gets hit, you know, by this completely unexpected positive test that was no fault of Triple G. He had spoken out pretty candidly when we had a media day up in Big Bear. He was very frustrated. He felt disrespected by the situation, the positive tests with Canelo. And frankly, that heightened the promotion. I mean, it was at a fevered pitch when Gennady made his statements. Canelo fired back on his Instagram, his social media, and it was just the anticipation of this rematch is at a much higher scale than the very successful event we promoted together with Golden Boy the first time. So with that being said, I can turn over the microphone to Abel and to Triple G. There's really no reason for Gennady to give any interviews post this. We just wanted to give you an update of where we're at, which is basically nothing is finalized. But again, anything related to Triple G is news. You know, with that, Abel, if you want to say a few words how training's going and Gennady's weight and everything like that.
Yeah, everything's going well. I'm a little disappointed like you guys are, because there's no definite answer. Like I told everybody here, I didn't know why we were here. We're training hard. Gennady weighed 165.8 for the 30-day weigh-in, so we're on schedule for our May 5th fight. Hopefully Tom and the people concerned can get it together so he can fight. I think the fans are clamoring for just to see him fight somebody. Hopefully they can get it done, and hopefully none of the organizations and people that are trying to keep it from happening get in the way, and we can't have that fight. Thank you.
I can speak to that also a little bit more, and we can answer a few questions once Gennady makes a statement. And his brother Max Golovkin is sitting next to him. You know, Max always comes in for every training camp. It was their shared birthday since they're fraternal twins last Sunday. I'm working hard to give Gennady that birthday present that he's looking for, is a final fight announcement for May 5. When I tell you we've gone through a lot of names, you know, Spike O'Sullivan was definitely in the running, and he finally gave his final answer yesterday that he's not going to be available or for this particular time to fight Triple G May 5. But again, as Abel said, I think the fans, all the reaction that I'm getting from the fans is that they want to see Triple G fight in the ring. It's been since September. This is one of the longest layoffs he's been. We think it's patently unfair that he doesn't fight just because Canelo is suspended. So that's how we landed in this situation in the first place, and that's why we're trying to make the best out of the situation. If the fight happens on May 5, HBO has pledged their full support to have Triple G back on the network. This would be the first time Triple G has been on HBO since he fought Kell Brook over in England. His last two fights have been on pay-per-view, and naturally the Canelo fight would be on pay-per-view. So this would be a huge bonus to see Triple G in the ring on HBO. Cecilia, if there's a way that we can work it out, she would be on the show. It'd be the first time a female boxer, female champion would be on HBO. That's huge news. Chocolatito has expressed his interest of being on the show, and if we can put this together, I think it would be a tremendous show. So that's basically telegraphing what the show would look like if there's a way that we can make everything come together for Triple G. If we don't have anything finalized for Triple G, then naturally we're everything, we have to reevaluate everything at that point if for some reason he doesn't fight May 5. But hopefully we'll have an announcement for you soon. We won't have a press conference like this. Fred will send out, and Ricardo would send out a press release, and we probably have a conference call, things of that nature. But we're under the gun now just to save May 5 because we're in short notice. I do have to thank Tecate and Chivas, two of Gennady's global sponsors. He's a brand ambassador for both of them. They've pledged their support 100%. They want to support Gennady against who he fights, when he fights, or where he fights, whether it's in Las Vegas, whether it's in Los Angeles, whether it's in New York. StubHub Center is 100% behind Triple G fighting there. Madison Square Garden is 100% behind Gennady fighting there. And the MGM Grand, frankly, was 100% behind Gennady fighting there once the Canelo fight was postponed, so to speak, after the May 5 date. So we want to thank all of them. Jordan Brand, they filmed new commercials with Gennady, with Triple G. He's their only brand ambassador or representative for the sport of boxing right now, and Gennady's very proud of the association with the Jordan Brand. So we want to thank them as well. As Hublot, who's coming out with a new edition of the Triple G watch, and Bijan. We just did a photo shoot for a luxury magazine at Bijan also last Saturday after Gennady was at the Santa Anita racetrack. So Gennady's actually doing his job. He's training, he's promoting his career. He's doing everything that he can do to try to stay active. Unfortunately, when you have fights like this that fall out, everything is not under our control. So we are supportive of the appreciative of the fans and the support that we're getting from all of his sponsors, from his television partner, from HBO. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gennady, who will answer or say a few things on his behalf. As Abel said, the training's going tremendous. He's under 166 pounds for the 30-day weigh-in, so that shows you, that he has no problem making 160 pounds. And if he fights, or the next time that he steps in the ring, if he's successful defending his world titles, it will be his 20th title defense. That will be a record-tying defense with the legendary Bernard Hopkins. So, every time Gennady steps in the ring, he's creating history, regardless of against who it is. So with that, Gennady, if you want to say a few words and address the media, and then we'll take a few questions for everyone sitting up here at the dais.
Thank you so much, Ezo. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Just Tom said all along. I still in Big Bear. Just my training hard every day. I feel great. I want to fight May 5th. I'm ready. Just give me give me fight. I ask Tom every day, just just Tom, please give me fight. Unbelievable. Right now, this crazy situation for boxing, not for me. Just everybody knows my style. I want to fight like 4 times per year, and this time, like biggest day, maybe Cinco de Mayo, huge day, and no fight. It's terrible. Right now, maybe I'm not in the same boxing situation, business situation. I'm ready for question.
You mentioned 3 venues. Are those 3 venues still in the run? Should there be a fight on May 5th, or is there a venue, specific venue that you would prefer to hold a fight?
Those 3 venues are still in the running. As I mentioned, they're very supportive of Triple G. With Las Vegas, it's a little bit more complex because the shorter the time frame, it's people have to fly into Las Vegas. So I want to actually apologize to the fans if the fight doesn't wind up to Las Vegas. Gennady put out a photo on his social media. I gave a number of interviews saying don't cancel your flights to Las Vegas. But sometimes things are out of our control. If the fight does not wind up in Las Vegas, it's certainly not because we didn't want it to go to Las Vegas. So that's the first and foremost statement for the fans that were planning to see a Triple G Canelo fight on Cinco de Mayo. Then it was okay. Triple G was going to fight somebody else at the Grand Garden, and because we've had such a challenge. Having all the pieces, putting all the pieces together on such a big promotion. I mean, still, whenever Gennady gets in the ring against whoever he fights or where he fights, it's a huge promotion. With HBO, all the international television, with all of his international sponsors, and to get all those moving pieces together has taken a lot longer than we had anticipated.
Tom. Right now, I think it's April 12th. Is there a particular date that if you don't secure an opponent, venue, and everything else, that you move on from May 5th?
All the venues have told us that they are going to keep the date as long as we feel it's still possible to promote a show. HBO, to their credit, they originally had a pay-per-view scheduled on May 5th. They're adjusting their schedule to accommodate Triple G, which is not easy to do with less than 30 days. So every partner that I mentioned previously is supporting Triple G so that he would be able to get in the ring on Cinco de Mayo.
So Tom, if it's the worst case scenario that May 5th doesn't work out, the 2-part question I have is, would you then wait all the way till September, hoping that Canelo can be available for the rematch, or do you fight in June against, let's say, a Derevchenko?
Well, that's that I think is dependent on what the Nevada Commission rules on April 18th. Depending on what Nevada rules, then we'll have to make our adjustment. Hopefully, Gennady has a fight secured by May 5th by that time, and then he's not as dependent on it. If they rule a longer suspension, then we'll have to, the obvious choice would have been as a replacement. I mean, you really can't replace either Triple G or Canelo in this mega fight. This is literally the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. When you think of where Gennady has come in the 6 years, 5.5 years since he made his debut on HBO, he's literally in the biggest fight in the sport of boxing when you put that into perspective. Him and Canelo Alvarez. So if you take Canelo out of the equation, it's still a big fight with Triple G, but it's not that mega fight. If you take Triple G out of the equation, Canelo's still in a big fight, but it's not a mega fight. And the success we had the first time around was going to be just from the ticket sales. We had already surpassed the record gate that we had done the first time, where we had set the record for the 3rd highest gate in the sport of boxing. And Tony can tell you the anticipation and the participation of all the platforms that the HBO pay-per-view was going to be broadcast on was much higher than the first fight. So to answer your question, Steve, first it depends on what happens May 5, and secondly, it's going to depend on how long Canelo's out. Gennady has never avoided a challenge. There have been some people that have been proposed, but you know, given the circumstances and given the limited promotion, I think it would be unfair to any situation that you know, should have a much longer promotion. So there are some fighters that are in training that have expressed interest to still fight Triple G, and that's my biggest challenge. A lot of people don't even want to get in the ring with Triple G, let alone on short notice. So that's a challenge. But getting back to where, you know, I mean, it's just a statement to where he's come, you know, through his promotion, through his interviews, his marketing of himself, the fact that every time the fans know, every time Gennady Golovkin steps in the ring, they're going to get a big drama show. They don't care who it's against. Gennady has never been in a boring fight, ever. And Abel has instilled that, together with Gennady's punching power, together with his aggressiveness, even if he fights a very defensive fighter. I mean, look how defensive Canelo was in the first fight, and Gennady still made it a very exciting fight. We felt Gennady clearly won. We felt it was a grave injustice that he didn't get the decision. We completely agreed with the scoring of HBO. You know, they had it, Harold Letterman had it 8-4, and that's how we had scored it. You know, 7-5, maybe if you give Canelo, you know, a lot of the close rounds, but you know, we're trying to right that injustice right now with the rematch with Canelo. Then this happens, and now Gennady's really the one who's sitting here, one of the greatest ambassadors of the sport of boxing, regardless of where he goes. When he arrives in China, when he goes to Mexico City, Azteca Stadium, everywhere I've traveled with Triple G, he's a fan favorite, and that's just a huge testament to his career, to his personality, to his character, and his representative of the sport of boxing. And that's why I'm doing everything that I can to make sure that he gets in the ring May 5 if he wants to fight on that date.
Lance, what's this fight on May 5th? Is it predicated on the April 18th Nevada hearing? Is it predicated on you doing a deal with Bonas Monterosa? Or is it predicated on you hearing from the IBF about whether or not they'll strip Gennady?
There's a lot of moving parts, Lance, and everything that you mentioned is all in the equation. So this isn't just, okay, let's work out a deal with an opponent, okay, let's get in the ring. I mean, there's literally a lot of moving parts with this promotion, and when you have a unified champion at the level of Triple G, everything has to come together. You know, he has his responsibilities as you know, holding so many titles and mandatory responsibilities. Triple G has always lived up to his mandatories. You know, unfortunately, we can't say the same thing when he was the mandatory for other titles. But you know, we've never been in this unique situation before, where we don't have at least 2 months to announce a fight, have everything in place, have all the marketing in place. Everything is on a very condensed schedule. As you can imagine, with HBO, even though they're you know, our exclusive TV partner, because they had to shift everything around, they hadn't planned on a Triple G fight being on the network on May 5. So, you know, there's a lot of different dynamics to this particular promotion than any other fight that he's been at. You know, we really look at this as an opportunity for the fans to see Triple G in the ring, to see him on a non-pay-per-view show, to see him at reasonable ticket prices. You know, his moniker is the People's Champion. You know, Ali was the People's Champion, and we feel that Triple G likes to give back to the fans. And every time he walks out, he walks through the fans. Every time he comes to different events, he's signing autographs, he's taking photos with the fans. And he likes to interact with the fans, and he appreciates the fan support. The fans are really what drive the sport, and they're really demanding to see him back in the ring, and that's also pressure on me just to make this happen.
One quick follow-up. Can you strike a deal with Bonas without losing the IBF belt?
Look, as I mentioned, Lance, I'm in regular contact with the IBF, the WBC, and the WBA. So we respect all their rules. You know, the WBC is mandatory normally under the rotation that everybody agreed was next. Now with Canelo falling out for this particular fight, now, you know, we have to see what can be accomplished. So we acknowledge that situation, At the same time, I think it would be a shame to have a fight such as a Derevyanchenko or whoever the case is promoted on a 3-week basis in a potentially much smaller arena than it could be. But again, we have to follow the rules from the IBF as well as the WBC and the WBA, and that's what we intend to do.
Following up on his question, so the only issue, all the candidates you should have, or you have, the WBA and WBC are okay with them except the IBF, correct?
I'm not sure.
Would there be a true assessment?
I'm not sure if you can really phrase it that way. The IBF does have a mandatory in place, and that's what we're trying to work out. Something that's amicable with the IBF, with the mandatories that are due, and Triple G has suffered when he was a mandatory, so we can appreciate that position. At the same time, having fought and beaten the 2 best fighters in the middleweight division last year, he got a draw against Canelo, but Danny Jacobs. We don't have to really dwell on that, but Gennady followed all the rules of the IBF to his detriment. That wasn't a level playing field when he followed the rules of the champion and weighed in at 169 pounds the day after the weigh-in. And Danny unfortunately didn't show up to the second day weigh-in because he was way over 170 pounds. Had he been at that weight, he would have done the second day weigh-in. So, Gennady has been one of the few fighters that followed all the rules, done everything correctly inside the ring and outside the ring, and we're just trying to make the best of that situation. And again, after that fight, after he beat Danny in a great event, we're not taking anything away from Danny's performance. We thought he had one of the best performances against Triple G that he's had of his career. I mean, he definitely made it a very close fight, but at the same time, he didn't follow the rules, so that was an issue. And then, with the decision with Canelo, we thought that Gennady clearly won the fight. We actually thought the Canelo fight wasn't as close as the Jacobs fight. He just happened to get the knockdown against Danny Jacobs. But again, when you look at Gennady's career as a total and as a sum, especially having fought those 2 very competitive, very difficult fights, it's not like he has fought guys that weren't competitive last year, and now he's looking to have a voluntary defense. Where we have the Canelo fight. If he's allowed to fight in September, that would be the focus. That's the biggest fight for both Canelo and Triple G and the sport of boxing. And given the circumstances now, we're just trying to make the best out of the Cinco de Mayo day.
Quiero preguntar en primera instancia a Abel, y si nos puede contestar también Gennady Golovkin. Olvidándonos de los cinturones, sé que no eres promotor y Golovkin tampoco es promotor, pero en cuanto al optimismo, Abel, ¿cómo sienten ustedes? ¿Hay verdaderas posibilidades de que se dé realmente el combate del 5 de mayo? Y si me puedes ayudar a que me conteste Golovkin, como equipo, no como promotor.
Fíjese que yo bajé de Big Bear ahora, no sabiendo, como le expliqué antes, no sabiendo lo que iba a decir Tom. Estamos entrenando como vamos a pelear el 5 de mayo, estamos entrenando para un rival derecho. No sabemos el nombre, no sabemos quién es, pero estamos entrenando para esa fecha. El optimismo mío es que vamos a pelear. Yo no lo estuviera trabajando tan duro como lo estoy trabajando para algo que no va a pasar. Para mí va a pasar esa pelea, esa fecha, y él también piensa que va a pasar.
Si los pueden contestar, si me ayudan los dos, por favor, rápidamente, la misma pregunta.
The question is, what is your feeling? Do you think the fight's going to happen or it's not going to happen? How do you feel about May the 5th happening or not happening?
I don't know. Seriously, coach. I don't know.
Tom, please.
That's the pressure for me.
Yeah, I know, but yeah.
I can say I was in contact with Lou DiBella today, to get back to the IBF situation, and I have a good relationship with Lou, and Derevyanchenko has the same management team as Danny Jacobs, so I have a good relationship with Keith Connolly as well, and if there's a way to work out an amicable situation that works for Triple G and works for their side, then naturally that's the best solution. So Gennady understands, because of his many Mexican fans, he understands the importance of fighting on Cinco de Mayo. He understands the fans want to see him back in the ring, and that's why he wants to stay active. He wants to fight on this important date, and the fans want to see him on that important date. It shouldn't be that complicated, but again, as Lance mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of issues to every time he gets in the ring now, and it's my job to make the best of the situation.
Abel, can you tell us just how you guys received the news about the cancellation of the fight against Canelo, just that day? And also, Tom, have you guys received a lot of refund requests from fans after the news from last week?
Well, actually, I got a call from Tom telling me that the fight was, there's some issues with the fight, didn't go into detail. But it was disappointing. It was disappointing because I think as a fan that I am also, it's the biggest fight. I think it's a fight that we're going to resolve some issues from the first one. And it was disappointing to hear that somebody could be so careless.
Has it been difficult in training since getting the news that the fight was canceled?
No, absolutely not. It's actually hasn't had a bearing on it. The training he trains, he's a professional. He trains every day harder and harder for that date. He wanted to fight on the 5th, and obviously we didn't know back then when it was announced whether the fight would be postponed or not, or what was going to happen. So we continue to train until somebody tells us different. When Tom says the fight is off, and then we stop training. But until then, that's Tom's job. Our job is to be ready for when they call.
Gennady, since September of 2006...
I'll just follow up on that question. So, I mean, I found out about it. Eric Gomez of Golden Boy Promotions had called me and explained the positive test. He had told the Nevada Commission and VADA that he would inform me of the news, and he did that. And it was, it was a big shock to our side, and we didn't know what the Nevada Commission would rule, but apparently under their rules, there's a mandatory suspension. So, it just everything that we have worked towards in Gennady's career. He sold out the last 8 arenas that he's fought at, whether it's Las Vegas, whether it's Madison Square Garden, whether it's the Forum, whether it's StubHub Center, whether it's O2 in London. He's sold out the last 8 arenas, which nobody in the sport of boxing can say that statement. In 8 different occasions. So all over the world. That's why Gennady brings back the true definition of a world champion. And when we were informed of the news, we didn't know immediately if the fight would be postponed, depending on what the Nevada Commission had ruled. And according to their rules, they had to do a mandatory temporary suspension, and now April 18th they're going to rule how long the suspension goes. But it's clear from their rules that Canelo would not be available or allowed to fight May 5, and that's why Canelo had the press conference here in LA to say that he wasn't going to fight May 5. At the same time, had we been allowed to move forward, it would have made my job a lot easier also. But until Canelo gave up that date at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, I wasn't able to request a different date in Las Vegas. So everything got really condensed time-wise, and it put us under the gun now to try to save the fight for Triple G.
As far as tickets, have you guys received a lot of requests for refunds?
That would be really more a question with the box office and Grand Garden. As I had mentioned, there was a huge response. The MGM is issuing, because it's not happening May 5 at T-Mobile, T-Mobile's issuing refunds to everyone who purchased a ticket. So when the fight does get rescheduled, the fans will be able to buy a new ticket for the rescheduled fight. Steve?
Yeah, I want to ask Gennady this. In September of 2016, you fought Kell Brook.
Yeah.
I think you've only fought twice. Gennady, do you want to get back to your regular schedule, fighting 3-4 times a year again?
Absolutely, absolutely. See, look, right now it's a very terrible situation for me because I lose interest for boxing. like we lose May 5th, the biggest day. You know, nobody want to fight with me. Just they're serious. Maybe regular people, maybe 4 or 5 times, because I feel great and feel, you know, just still activity. Just I like this sport. It's my favorite sport. I like sparring. Okay, maybe this is not a huge fight, like next fight, not biggest fight for me. It's fine. No, I like fight.
So Gennady, let's say, and again, this is the worst case scenario, this is just a guess.
Yeah.
Let's say Canelo cannot fight in September. Let's say the commission says it's a full year.
Yeah.
Do you at that point, and I guess Tom, you can chime in, there are fights there, Vichenko, Charlo,
Absolutely.
Jacob. Could you then at that point go back to, let's say, what it was in 2013 and 14?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know, as Gennady had just answered, he wants to get back on a schedule where he dictates the pace, not where the opponents dictate the pace. You know, when you have a mandatory and then you get, drawn out negotiations and then a potential purse bid, then naturally that draws out the whole timing. But, you know, the good thing when Gennady has mandatories, he's one of the champions, the few champions on his level that has so many titles that stays as active as he wants to stay. If he can fight 3 or 4 times a year, he can get through all those mandatories without having any issues. But you know, when there are roadblocks like this, this fight on May 5, or you know, then that becomes an issue. You know, naturally, there's Billy Joe Saunders out there to unify the title. That's been Gennady's dream. But you know, at some point, if it's not realistic to make the fight with Saunders, he still has, you know, very high expectations of what his worth is to fight Triple G. And you know, Billy Joe Saunders fight is nothing compared to a Canelo fight. You know, even though that would complete Gennady's dream of unifying all the titles. That's always been his goal since he started. I mean, occasionally, if there was a fight at 168 that made sense, that was, you know, a very high-profile fight, like a Carl Froch fight in Wembley Stadium, that's a fight that makes sense. Or Chavez Jr., you know, when he was at the top of his game, you know, that's a fight that could have made sense. But other than that, he's always wanted to unify the middleweight division, and right now he's on the verge of tying the record and potentially breaking the record this year for the historic amount of times that Bernard Hopkins has defended that title.
Lance?
And it is bonus or bust for May 5th, is that correct?
I wouldn't put it that way, Lance. Bonas has expressed interest. He is training. He is local in LA, so for a number of reasons, he would make sense. But there are, trust me, I've been in contact with so many people. There are other people that are interested. Like I said, I've been in contact with Lou, and you know, we'll see what we can work out to make the best of this situation.
Tom, a lot of people are going to be reading our tweets and wondering why not just go with a mandatory? What's the problem with that? Could you shed some light on that?
It's a pretty simple answer, and I don't want to really get into discussions with Lou, but we feel under a reduced television fee, under a condensed schedule for marketing a fight, not only would it be disadvantageous for mandatory, but also for Triple G. I mean, Triple G, you know, sells out the biggest arenas in the world, and if we have a proper time to promote and market a fight, nobody does it better than we do with the Triple G fights. You know, when you can sell out Madison Square Garden twice, you know, with a David Lemieux, with a Danny Jacobs, you know, a Derevyanchenko would be a huge fight in Madison Square Garden. So why would you want to shortchange the mandatory challenger and the champion, the unified champion, squeezing a situation like that? I think Derevyanchenko has gotten more publicity over the last week or 10 days than he has ever in his career, just being linked as Triple G's mandatory. So if there's a way to build a fight like that that makes sense for both sides, that would be the most prudent way to do it, instead of forcing both guys to take extremely short situations on the financial side to rush a fight like this, when a fight can actually be built into another big fight. It's not a knock on Derevyanchenko, and we believe Gennady can beat whether it's Derevyanchenko, whether it's Charlo, whether all his mandatories. I would say Danny Jacobs was one of the toughest fights, you know, that could be made for Gennady, and Gennady never blinked about making his WBA mandatory defense against Danny Jacobs, and Danny really rose to the occasion for that fight. The same thing with Canelo. I mean, Canelo rose to the occasion. You know, he always said he wasn't a middleweight, but you know, then he fought Chavez at 164. He actually had to come down in weight to fight Triple G. So I don't think anyone can accuse Triple G of not fighting the best guys in the division. And if a Derevyanchenko fight should be made, I think it needs to be made properly with the right type of promotion, the right type of planning, so that both guys on each side can get paid and compensated properly.
So, especially talking about Cinco de Mayo, you're willing to accept something like a cash weight because there are two Mexicans, Julio Cesar Chavez, you mentioned that, but Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, he raised the hand. I mean, you're willing to do something like a catch weight?
Well, I've told Bob a number of times in the past, and Abel can corroborate this. Every time I've asked Abel if he wants to fight El Zurdo, we have a lot of respect for him. In fact, he was in the training camp with Gennady. But he was one of the people that would have made sense on Cinco de Mayo, certainly as the champion. But he's not ready for Cinco de Mayo, even though, regardless of what some people might say, he wasn't available. But again, that's another fight, just like Derevyanchenko. I don't want to single out Derevyanchenko, but that's another fight that wouldn't make sense on a shortened, condensed schedule. That's a fight that can be built. Look, if Gennady beats Canelo in September, then all these fights can be made at much more attractive situations than trying to squeeze something in 3 or 4 weeks. And a fight with El Zurdo, if Gennady does move to 168 ever to challenge for a title, that's a huge fight. That's a huge statement, and that would be pay-per-view, and that would be something that would sell out the arenas, whether here in LA or in Texas or in Las Vegas. And that's another fight that just wouldn't make sense for both guys to take on short notice.
Le pediría a ver si nos puede contestar esta misma pregunta en español.
Sí, exactamente como dijo Tom, esa pelea no es justo para el zurdo o para Gennady que la hagamos en 3 semanas. Esa pelea es algo que se necesita mucha publicidad, un tour del mundo, así para va a ser la primera pelea que Gennady sube para pelear por un campeonato mundial en ese peso. Pero no es algo que se puede hacer así tan rápido, no es justo para los dos, no más por dinero, pero también para el público, también que se aliste el público con sus finanzas también para poder comprar la pelea, para poder tomar un vuelo a donde va a ser la pelea, para comprar un boleto para mirar la pelea. Muchas cosas que uno no considera, pero el público también tiene que estar listo para esa pelea.
Tom, Keith Idek's on the phone. He wanted to ask a question. Keith, you got a question?
He might have logged out. Keith, are you there?
Keith Idek?
Can you hear me now? Tom, I'm here, but my question was already asked.
Oh, okay, good.
Hey, well, I have a question for you. You're with Gennady every day. He just recently turned 36. How do you see him physically right now at this point?
Physically, I see him the same. More than...
Looks just like Max.
Well,
More. I have more experience.
More than physically, I see him so motivated. I think that he understands the fact that he just turned 36, and he just seems to be more motivated in the gym. He seems to be more motivated on doing the things that are necessary. Murat Gassiel is in the gym right now, and what I was just saying to me this morning, he said he's glad that Gennady's not there for the workouts today because he gets to do a normal workout. It's fun to watch him be happy. It's fun to watch him be looking forward to a date, even though I'm sure in the back of his mind he thinks that it may not happen. But it's fun to watch him smile in the gym because it gives us a different environment in the gym.
Go ahead, Lynch. Is there a do or die day, Tom?
Well, at some point, we're going to run out of time. Right now, it's 3 weeks from Saturday. Again, you know, the arenas all are working with us. HBO is working with us. So, you know, I would say sometime mid next week, you know, if something isn't resolved by then you know, at some point it's not realistic, but Gennady is in 100% training mode. Just like as, you know, he stayed training. You know, he's come down to LA a significant amount of times, this time first to promote the pay-per-view, and now he knows if he fights May 5, he has to carry the promotion. But that's the unique individual that Gennady is. That's why he's become so popular, is because, you know, unlike some fighters that lock down their training camp and don't allow media to the training or whatever the case is, Gennady will actually come down, do interviews. Fred will tell you, we had one media day scheduled when he went to the Andre the Giant premiere to support HBO. When he was walking the red carpet, he met Triple H. We had a great photo with Triple H and Triple G, and Hulk Hogan was there, and you know, it just the Big Show was there. You know, so many great talents, but you know, he was there, and then we were going to come down on Friday, and Fred had a whole media day scheduled on that date, and that was you know, planned prior to the fight officially being off with Canelo. So it's just one of those situations that Gennady understands his responsibility as a champion, and looks forward to it. Like Abel says, you know, right now, every time I ask him, you know, gee, should we do this interview, or what do you think? And you know, he'll ask a few questions, but he's always, if I recommend it or Fred recommends it, and he understands the value of it, just like this media lunch now. Yeah. Normally he'd be up in Big Bear running, he'd be sparring, he'd be, you know, putting pressure on the sparring partners. So it's a day off for the sparring partners. They will gotta reduce their pay a little bit. For Murat, yeah. No, didn't he wrestle Murat the other day?
Yeah, it wasn't wrestling.
He was practicing. He was practicing some of his mixed martial arts move. When you have Floyd Mayweather getting in the cage, he's training. Floyd wants to fight Triple G in the octagon, and we won't have to modify any rules. I think you can quote Triple G on that, but you know,
nobody fights.
Gennady.
Fight is canceled.
Gennady has the motivation and the passion to take his career to as high of a level it is right now. He wants to take it to the highest level, and I don't see him slowing down anytime soon. There's a lot of speculation with him turning 36. People are, you know, he's slowing down, all this, and there's only one way to find out, and that's if he's in the ring. If he can fight May 5, and if he can fight against Canelo in this mega fight, then that'll answer the people's questions.
You know, Steve, a little more amplified answer. I think for this promotion, all you guys have seen that he's been more available. He's been to more interviews. He's been to more media and stuff. And I think that goes to what I'm saying. He just seems to be in a different kind of mood. You know, different, more accessible. And that's and I think that's good for all of us, because I certainly think that he needs to be. But I think it's because of the attitude. I don't know why. Maybe he's got something to prove against Canelo, and he wants everybody to see him on that date, and he's going to prove it.
Abel, do you think a busier Gennady Golovkin in terms of the activity 3-4 times a year is better than one that fights only twice?
Well, absolutely. I think for the fans it's better, but for him it's better because he stays focused, because he stays not only in the gym, but he stays in that kind of mood that he wants to go out and fight. He wants to be, he loves the spar. If I could take all the rest of the stuff in training camp and throw it out the window and just spar, it'd be great for him. So for him to be able to fight, spar and fight would be ideal for him 3 or 4 times a year.
Gennady, we were at the press conference with Canelo, and he apologized to fans, to his sponsors, but I didn't hear that he apologized to your camp. What do you think about that press conference? He said he was an honest, clean fighter, and if you believe him.
It's Canelo's problem, not just, it's Canelo's problems, you know. First of all, I remember my situation after September, after the first fight, just my focus on just May for next month, you know. So I canceled all ideas, like I said, okay, just my focus on for May, the biggest days in Canelo right now. Just unbelievable this situation, because you know, just Canelo, he's gone. And Billy Joe Saunders, he's not ready for last belt, unification belt, all belts. You know, everybody knows it is my okay, now dream is my goal is all belts in middleweight division. Right now, situation in middleweight division is crazy. Just maybe 2 weeks, we'll have, okay, 3 weeks for unification fight, for pay-per-view fight. No, this is nothing, you know. We lose May, like we lose a lot of time. Maybe see if you're right, absolutely right. Maybe we'll come back for this strategy, maybe 3-4 times per year. It's better for fans, you know, just because I lose interest, because you know nobody understands huge situation in middleweight division. It's great division, and I feel very comfortable. I feel my physical very good, you know. Just I like bring more action, more drama show, like Tom said, you know. Just I like bring more emotion. I can't because nobody ready, you know. Just right now it's a crazy situation for boxing in the middleweight division.
Edward, I'll answer that question. That we actually got a lot of questions as to why people are asking me why didn't Canelo apologize to Triple G. And I said I don't know. We're not involved in the Canelo situation. We hope we understand that the Nevada Commission is doing a very thorough investigation. Naturally, from a standpoint, we hope he can get back in the ring as soon as possible. That's the fight that Triple G wants. But any type of a positive test, regardless of what the circumstances is, has to be taken very seriously in sports, and especially in the sport of boxing. And all we want is a level playing field for Triple G and whoever gets in the ring. We felt, as I alluded to the Danny Jacobs situation, we felt that wasn't a level playing field because had Danny Jacobs been the same weight as Triple G on that IBF mandated second day weigh-in, then he would have been there. And with these tests that Canelo went through, it's just it's one of those things that the person who's suffering the most because of that is sitting right here, is Triple G. He's the one that's missing out on this mega fight, and I guarantee you, and Abel has said this many times, if he was the one, if there was something that went wrong with him, everybody would jump on Triple G because he's been so dominant. He's had so many knockouts, regardless of where he's fought. And if there was any question to his natural ability and his work ethic and his discipline and his sacrifice and his training, if there was anything that tainted that, everyone would jump on him. And it's one of those things that we can't really comment on the Canelo situation because that's between him and the commission. But I think Gennady has definitely been wronged because of that. Whether regardless of what the circumstances is, the bottom line is the fight's not happening. Whether it makes the fight bigger, that I would say so. All the controversy around it is going to make this a much bigger promotion when the fight does happen. But at the same time, if it was up to Gennady, he would want to fight him as soon as possible. May 5. Unfortunately, that's not possible. But again, we're sitting here just trying to explain to the media all the speculation and everything. As soon as we have something that's actually finalized and signed and agreed to by all parties, then we can announce something. And I just wanted to take the pressure off all the speculation and come here, and you can see Gennady. He's in tremendous shape. He was 166 pounds last week. And he just wants to fight.
Gennady, is there a worry at all that you won't get a Canelo fight at all in the future, that the fight just won't happen? Do you worry about that?
Maybe I come for this situation again, because last time, Canelo, who's Canelo? Yeah, of course, like everybody said, he's a huge Mexican star. Yeah. Last press conference he said, I can't, I'm sorry, I apologize, this is my fault. This is crazy. It's crazy for people. He's not star, he's not huge, like he's not huge ambassador for boxing. He's terrible. Yeah. Maybe if you people want to fight me and you and him, absolutely.
But without that, if there's not pressure, you feel that it's just...
I feel very comfortable. Just why you ask me, I feel very comfortable. I look like that, like an old man. Show me situation. Who's Canelo? I remember last time he said, sorry, this is my fault. Come on, get out of here. No, just
He's Marcos. He's ready for whoever it is. Naturally, a Canelo fight, and I've said this so many times. You know, Canelo needs Triple G to be in that mega fight, and Gennady needs a Canelo to be in that mega fight. But Gennady is the type of guy that he doesn't care who he's in the ring with. He'll fight anyone. You know, whether they're southpaw, right-handed, tall, short, whatever it is. You know, regardless of what the arena is. Actually, in this particular fight, it's a little bit different of a situation. This May 5th date that we're talking about. But outside of that, if we have a normal promotion and we can properly promote a fight, he's never backed away from a challenge.
Real quick, I mean, if the IBF situation could get rectified, you could be making the deal, but I know Gennady loves the belts, so you want to try to get that resolved before you can do any of this. Is that an accurate assessment of where things stand right this minute?
Yes, Lance. The optimal situation is that we can work out an amicable solution that ultimately turns out for the best for the IBF mandatory, while at the same time respecting the rules of the IBF. We understand they have their rules, and like I said, Gennady has always followed the rules. So that's the optimal situation, is that everything can be worked out so that all the parties are satisfied.
Let's take it time. I need maybe a couple months.
Is it a fair situation, given that you have, you know, fulfilled the mandatory, I think a couple of years ago with Wade, and, you know, taking these fights? Do you feel like this situation that the IBF has put you under is fair?
You know, everyone has their own rules. You know, WBC has their rules, WBA has their rules, and WBA has their rules, and IBF has their rules. So, you know, each sanctioning body has their own rules, and we've always played by the rules. And I have a good relationship with all of them. And again, I said I have a good relationship with Lou and with Keith Connolly. I don't personally know Derevchenko, but I think that's a fight that can really be built into a much bigger fight, especially given the right marketing and promotion of the fight. And you know, I'll be speaking to Lou again today and speaking to the IBF, and as well as the WBC and the WBA, and hopefully we can work out everything so that you know, everything works out positively for all the parties involved.
Mike? You know, it's totally understandable you would want more time to promote a fight between Golovkin and Derevchenko, but if push comes to shove and they're going to strip Gennady, he doesn't fight him, is there any thoughts of moving the fight to June, or is it May 5th or September at this point?
You know, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, Mike. The main goal is, if Canelo is available in September, we don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize the September fight. At the same time, you know, we have to look out for Gennady's career. So I think April 18th will answer a lot of questions as to what the Nevada Commission rules, and then, you know, we'll have a much better idea of what happens after that.
Just one quick follow-up. You know, obviously at this point, this is not Gennady's fault. This is not happening. Let's say the IBF doesn't enforce everything. Is there any chance you could do Derevchenko in the summer, let's say July, whatever, and then you just, okay, September, this magical weekend, I know it's Mexican Independence Day weekend, but is there any chance that you could just do Canelo later in the year, or is September important?
Look, he wants to fight Canelo as soon as Canelo can get back in the ring. He wants to right that injustice that we all feel were with the first fight with the scorecards. I mean, he has a draw on his record. I mean, he's got 37 wins and 33 knockouts and 1 draw. And people, when they look back at his historic career, it's like, oh, he's got a draw. Who's that against? You know, and people might not be familiar with the fight if you're looking at 20 years down the road. Oh, he had a draw with Canelo Alvarez. But if you actually watch the fight, you know, I think 90% of the people will say Triple G won the fight. And so that's why he wants to get Canelo back in the ring. And frankly, it's the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. When you talk about, you know, on that stage, it doesn't get bigger than that. And so that's his focus. At the same time, it's my job to make sure everything can be worked out amicably, so that you know, so he can still achieve his goals of keeping all of his titles.
Thank you.
Guys, we're going to lose the room in a few minutes. So.
No, I think we're good. Gennady's not going to do any follow-up interviews here, but Abel can do interviews in Spanish if you like, and then we'll be good to wrap up. And Cecilia can.
It's a joke.
And then we'll take a photo. We can take.